Hey, Dolphins fans! Welcome back to the channel. Our Miami Dolphins are always working hard to improve and give us the results we all want to see. Every game counts, every move matters, and the team is doing everything it can to be at the top. Before we get into today's big story, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to stay updated on all things Dolphins. Alright, today we've got a packed update for you. We're going to cover the latest on Jaylen Ramsey getting hit with a fine, and we'll also dive into some trade rumors about one of our own, Javon Holland. Could the Dolphins be thinking about making a big move before the trade deadline? Let's get into it. We all know the NFL is strict about protecting its quarterbacks. It's part of the game now. Anything close to the head or too rough, and the flags start flying. And it's not just penalties on the field, but fines as well. Unfortunately for us, our own Jaylen Ramsey learned that the hard way. The NFL hit him with a $16,883 fine for what they called an illegal hit to the head. This happened during our Week 5 game against the Patriots, early in the third quarter. Jacoby Brissett had just thrown the ball, and Ramsey, always quick to react, gave him a little extra shove, right in the face mask. Now, let's be real. Was it a huge hit? No, it wasn't. Could it have caused an injury? Definitely not. But the NFL has a strict line when it comes to hits to the head, and even a small slap like this is going to cost you. Whether we agree with it or not, they have to be consistent with how they enforce these rules. The league isn't interested in measuring how hard the hit was, they just don't want any hits to the head, period. That said, Ramsey could have avoided this situation altogether. The ball was already out, and there was no play left to make. He could have gone for the shoulder or chest, but instead, that little extra hand to the helmet is what drew the flag and now, the fine. So what does this mean for Ramsey and the Dolphins moving forward? It's a costly lesson, but Ramsey's a smart player. Next time, he'll be more careful in those situations. We need him focused, especially with some tough games ahead. Let's hope this fine doesn't linger in his mind when he's back out there, locking down receivers. Now, let's get to the big question. Will the Dolphins trade Javon Holland before the November 5th NFL trade deadline? It's the talk of the town, and honestly, there's a lot to unpack here. As much as we love Holland, he's one of the top safeties in the league and a key player in our defense. We have to face some hard truths. Miami isn't in the best spot salary cap-wise, and decisions will have to be made about which players get big contract extensions. Javon Holland is in the final year of his contract, and while he's been eligible for an extension for a while now, Miami has chosen to prioritize other players. Guys like Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Jaylen Ramsey, and of course, Tua Tagovailoa. Those are players at what we call premium positions, and in the NFL, premium positions get paid first. Holland, as a safety, doesn't fall into that premium category. If we look at how Chris Greer, our GM, has handled extensions since taking over in 2016, it's clear that high-dollar deals mostly go to quarterbacks, wide receivers, pass rushers, and cornerbacks. Unfortunately, that means players like Holland could be left without an extension, even though they're elite at what they do. Absolutely. Holland is a rising star and one of the best safeties in the NFL. There would be no shortage of teams lining up to grab him if he's available, and the Dolphins could get a nice haul in return. We're talking about draft picks, potentially even high picks, which could be used to build for the future. But here's the thing, letting Holland go wouldn't just be about getting value for him, it's also about the financial side of things. Let's break it down. Miami is heading into the 2025 offseason with one of the worst salary cap situations in the league. Just $4.2 million in cap space, according to overtcap.com. That's the third lowest in the NFL. We simply might not be able to afford a huge contract for Holland, especially when safeties like Antoine Winfield are signing deals worth over $84 million. Holland is going to demand more than that when he hits the open market, and he'll definitely get it. The question is, will it be from us? Or will Miami decide it's better to trade him now and get something in return, rather than lose him for nothing next offseason? There's always the option to place the franchise tag on Holland to keep him around for another year, but here's the problem with that. Miami isn't in a good cap situation to handle even the tag. The franchise tag for safeties won't come cheap, and that $4.2 million in cap space won't be enough to make it work without cutting other players or restructuring contracts. It's a tough spot for the Dolphins front office. Do they push all in on this season and try to make a playoff run, or do they look ahead and start planning for the future by trading away a valuable piece like Holland? This is where it gets tricky, Dolphins fans. If we can win a few games between now and the deadline, especially against teams like the Colts, Cardinals, and Bills, it might make sense to hold on to Holland and make a push for the playoffs. But if we lose a couple of those matchups, the chances of making a deep run get smaller, and it might be time to start thinking about 2025 and beyond. Trading Holland wouldn't be easy for any of us. He's a fan favorite, and he's been a key part of our defense. But sometimes, tough decisions have to be made to set up the team for long-term success. Remember, the NFL is a business, and while it hurts to lose great players, getting draft capital in return can help us build a stronger team for the future. It's all about balancing the short-term and long-term goals, and Chris Grier has shown that he's willing to make those difficult calls. So, as we all know, our Dolphins pulled off a gritty 15-10 win over the New England Patriots in Week 5. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, as two of our guys ended up getting fined for their actions during the game. And trust me, Dolphins fans, these fines are turning heads. First up, our star cornerback, Jaylen Ramsey, found himself on the wrong side of the NFL's strict enforcement of its rules. Ramsey was fined a hefty $16,883 for what some are calling a pretty soft penalty. The fine came from a light push to the face of Patriots QB Jacoby Brissett right after he released a pass in the third quarter. Now, was it a big hit? Not at all. In fact, it was barely a push. But because Ramsey's hand made contact with Brissett's face mask, the league slapped him with that fine. Some are saying it's an overreaction by the NFL, but rules are rules, and the NFL has made it clear that any contact to a quarterback's head is going to be penalized and, in this case, fined. Ramsey's fine ended up being the third largest fine handed out by the league in Week 5. The other player who got hit with a fine was none other than rookie wide receiver Malik Washington. He was fined $4,694 for a blindside block during the second quarter, which drew a 15-yard penalty at the time. Now, Washington is still finding his footing in the NFL, and this kind of mistake isn't uncommon for rookies. The block was ruled illegal, and it ended up costing us field position during that drive. Of course, it's not ideal to see our rookie getting fined, but let's chalk this one up as a learning moment for Washington. He'll grow from this and be smarter on the field moving forward. This isn't the first time our Dolphins have had to deal with fines this season. In fact, several players have already been penalized by the league for various infractions through the first 5 weeks of the 2024 season. Week 1, safety Jordan Poyer got hit with a $11,200 fine for a face mask penalty in our 20-17 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Week 3, that was a rough one. Fullback Alec Ingold was fined $11,800 for a low block. Cornerback Kader Kohu got slapped with a $5,500 fine for a face mask, and linebacker Duke Riley got the biggest fine of the week at $16,900 for a blindside block during the loss to the Seahawks. Week 4, in our tough loss to the Tennessee Titans, both outside linebacker Emmanuel Ogbah and Jaylon Phillips were fined. Ogbah for a face mask, $11,300, and Phillips for illegal contact to a passer's knees, $16,900. Clearly, the NFL isn't taking it easy on the Dolphins when it comes to these penalties and fines. While some of these calls may seem excessive, especially when it's something as minor as a slight touch to the helmet, the league is standing firm on its mission to protect players, especially quarterbacks. It's part of the game we all have to live with. But it wasn't just our Dolphins feeling the sting of NFL fines after Week 5. On the other side of the ball, Patriots defensive lineman Keion White was fined $9,800 for 2 personal fouls in the third quarter, including a late hit on the passer. So, it's not like the NFL is singling out the Dolphins. Everyone's under the microscope when it comes to these penalties. With Week 6 coming up, the focus for our Dolphins needs to be on playing clean football. We've already seen how costly these penalties can be, both on the field and in the wallet. And while fines might not seem like a big deal to us as fans, they can create frustration for players, especially when the infractions are questionable, like the one on Jaylen Ramsey. For Ramsey, it's all about staying focused and continuing to lead this defense, which has been a bright spot for us this season. He's a smart player, and we know he's not going to let this fine affect his performance. As for Malik Washington, this is a chance for him to learn and grow. He's got the talent, and this small hiccup won't define his season. Now it's time for you to weigh in. Should the Dolphins trade Javon Holland before the deadline, or should we hold on to him and try to make a playoff push? Do you think Miami can afford to let a star like him go, or should we do whatever it takes to keep him around? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all things Miami Dolphins. We've got more exciting content coming your way as we approach the trade deadline and the rest of the season. Thanks for watching, Dolphins fans. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Your voice matters, and I can't wait to see what you think about all this. Fins up, and I'll see you in the next video.